Bruce Lee was more than a martial artist. He was a cultural earthquake, a man who reshaped the world's understanding of physical ability, cinematic storytelling, and personal philosophy. At the height of his fame, his sudden and unexpected death at just 32 years old sent shockwaves around the globe. For over 5 decades, questions have circled his passing like unanswered echoes. Now, with new medical research finally shedding light on what happened, the full picture of his life and death is coming into focus. Bruce Lee came into the world on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco's Chinatown. His parents, Lee Hoi-chuan and Grace Ho, were traveling performers with a Cantonese opera company. According to Chinese astrology, Bruce was born during both the hour and the year of the dragon, a sign traditionally associated with strength, power, and destiny. His Chinese stage name, Li Shu Lung, meaning Li the Little Dragon, would later seem almost prophetic. His birth name, Li Junfan, meaning return again, reflected his mother's quiet wish that he would one day come back to the United States. That wish would eventually come true, though not before Bruce endured a childhood shaped by war and hardship. Just 4 months after his birth, the family returned to Hong Kong. By December 1941, Japan had launched a brutal military occupation of the city, and Bruce spent his earliest years living under that shadow. Food was scarce, danger was constant, and fear was woven into daily life. These experiences left a permanent mark on the young boy. While other children played, Bruce was learning to navigate a city under military control. Despite the chaos, his life in front of the camera began early. He appeared as a baby in a film called Golden Gate Girl, carried on screen in a background scene. By age 9, he had a starring role in The Kid, a film based on a beloved local comic book character. By the time he turned 18, Bruce had already appeared in 20 films, a remarkable achievement for someone still in their teenage years. But fame at a young age didn't shield Bruce from deeper problems at home. In the early 1950s, his father fell into opium addiction, bringing instability to the family. Bruce himself struggled in school, eventually being transferred to St. Francis Xavier's College in 1956 due to poor academic performance and behavioral issues. Bright and full of restless energy, he had little patience for rigid rules, a quality that would both define and complicate the rest of his life. The rejected disciple. By the time Bruce was 13, the street fights were becoming a serious problem. In 1953, a friend named William Chung introduced him to the legendary Wing Chun master Ip Man, believing that martial arts training could give Bruce the structure and discipline he badly needed. Ip Man was already a revered figure in Hong Kong, with many young men training under his guidance. But when Bruce first sought admission to the school, he was turned away, not because of any lack of ability or attitude, but because of his heritage. Bruce's mother, Grace Ho, was of mixed Chinese and European ancestry, which meant that in the eyes of some traditionalists, Bruce was considered a foreigner. Many martial arts masters of the era believed their art should only be passed on to full-blooded Chinese students. It was William Chung who eventually spoke up and convinced Ip Man to allow Bruce to train. Even then, some fellow students refused to work with him. Bruce ultimately trained in smaller, private sessions alongside Chung and another student, Wang Shanliang. From the beginning, Bruce approached martial arts not as a hobby, but as an obsession. He practiced relentlessly, always pushing to improve, yet even as his skills grew, so did his involvement in street conflicts. In 1958, a rooftop brawl with students from a rival school, Cho Li Fut, escalated badly when Bruce knocked out one boy's teeth in the altercation. The injured boy's family went to the police. Bruce's mother stepped in, took full responsibility, and made a pivotal decision without telling her husband. It was time for Bruce to leave Hong Kong. Before departing, however, Bruce had one more moment to shine. In 1958, he won the Hong Kong Intercool Boxing Championship, defeating the reigning champion Gary Elms in the final round with a knockout. That same year, he also won the Crown Colony Cha-Cha Dancing Championship, a reminder that Bruce's physical gifts extended far beyond fighting. With a growing reputation and mounting legal risks, Bruce's parents sent him back to San Francisco at age 18. A new chapter was about to begin, breaking every rule. When Bruce arrived in the United States in 1959, he carried little more than ambition and a deep knowledge of Wing Chun. He stayed briefly with his older sister Agnes in San Francisco before moving to Seattle, Washington, where he enrolled at Edison Technical School to complete his high school education. To support himself, he worked as a live-in waiter at the home and restaurant of family friend Ruby Chow. The days were long and the work was hard, but Bruce never stopped training. In his spare time, he began teaching martial arts under the name Junfan Gung Fu, his own evolving interpretation of Wing Chun, already beginning to absorb new ideas and techniques. His very first student was Jesse Glover, an African-American judo practitioner who was immediately struck by Bruce's speed and precision. From that small start, Bruce's student base grew steadily. What set his classes apart was something unusual for the time. They were open to everyone. In an era when many martial arts schools were racially segregated, Bruce welcomed Black, White, Asian, and Latino students without hesitation. His belief was simple and radical. Martial arts belonged to all of humanity, not to any single group. In 1961, Bruce enrolled at the University of Washington, officially studying drama, but drawing deep inspiration from philosophy. He read widely across Eastern and Western thought, weaving these ideas into his approach to training and life. In 1964, he was invited to perform at the Long Beach International Karate Championships in California, where he dazzled the crowd with two-finger push-ups and his legendary one-inch punch, a devastating strike that sent a full-grown man stumbling backward with almost no visible wind-up. The martial arts world was beginning to take notice. The fight that changed everything. By the mid-1960s, Bruce's growing fame and his willingness to teach non-Chinese students had generated serious tension within the Chinese martial arts community in San Francisco. Traditionalist elders felt he was violating sacred customs by sharing kung fu secrets with outsiders. When Bruce refused to stop, they issued a formal challenge. A young martial artist recently arrived from China named Wong Jack Man was chosen to fight Bruce and settle the matter. The bout took place in 1964 behind closed doors at Bruce's school in Oakland, with only a handful of witnesses present. What followed has been debated ever since, because virtually every account differs. According to Bruce's wife Linda Lee, the fight lasted around 3 minutes, with Bruce attacking quickly and aggressively, leaving Wong unable to respond effectively before eventually giving up. However, Bruce was apparently frustrated afterward, not because he lost, but because he felt his performance had been inefficient. Other witnesses told a very different story. Respected martial artist William Chen, who was present, claimed the fight lasted 20 to 25 minutes and ended without a clear winner. Wong Jack Man himself later stated that Bruce had attacked without warning and fought recklessly, and that he himself had held back to avoid causing serious injury. No rematch ever happened. Bruce never publicly addressed Wong's later newspaper challenge for a second bout, and the truth of what occurred that day remains genuinely unclear. But something significant did emerge from the experience, regardless of who won. Bruce came away convinced that traditional martial arts were too rigid and rule-bound for real combat situations. He began studying boxing, fencing, wrestling, and other disciplines, determined to extract only what worked and discard everything else. From this process, he eventually developed his own system, which he named Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist, the Betty Ting pay scandal. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee visited the Hong Kong apartment of actress Betty Ting, Pei, to discuss the script for Game of Death, a film he was planning to complete. Producer Raymond Chow was also present earlier that day. By all accounts, Bruce seemed relaxed and in good health. But during the afternoon, he complained of a headache. Betty gave him a painkiller called Equigesic, a combination of aspirin and the tranquilizer meprobamate. Bruce said he needed to lie down and went into her bedroom. He never woke up. The shock of his death was immediate and global. But the location, a young actress's apartment rather than his home, immediately ignited a firestorm of speculation. Bruce was still married to Linda Lee at the time. The media exploded with rumors about a possible affair between Bruce and Betty. Headlines focused less on grief and more on scandal. Betty Ting Pei, who maintained that she and Bruce were close friends and professional collaborators, became the target of relentless public judgment. She has always firmly denied any romantic involvement, stating in a 1983 television interview that the public suspicions had forced her to live a nightmare for 10 years. She considered it deeply unfair, not only to herself but to Bruce's memory. Despite her denials, the rumors followed her for decades, and no concrete evidence of wrongdoing was ever established. What killed Bruce Lee? The official cause of death recorded in 1973 was cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. The initial medical explanation pointed to an allergic reaction to equagesic, but this answer satisfied very few people. Bruce was young, supremely fit and disciplined. A common painkiller killing him seemed implausible. What wasn't widely known at the time was that Bruce had already suffered a similar episode just 2 months earlier, in May 1973, while on the set of Enter the Dragon. He had complained of a headache, collapsed, and was taken to hospital where doctors found evidence of brain swelling. He recovered, but no serious long-term monitoring or preventive measures appear to have followed. His body had already sent a warning that went unheeded. Over the decades, various theories have attempted to explain the true cause. Biographer Matthew Polly, in his 2018 book on Bruce's life, drew attention to a 1972 surgery in which Bruce had the sweat glands removed from his underarms. His motivation was cosmetic. He wanted to appear dry on camera, but the medical consequence may have been severe. Without the full ability to sweat, his body would have struggled to regulate its temperature in Hong Kong's hot and humid climate, particularly during intense training and rehearsals. The most compelling and recent theory came in 2022 when a team of Spanish kidney specialists published a study suggesting that Bruce Lee died from hyponatremia, dangerously low sodium levels caused by drinking excessive amounts of water. Bruce was known to consume large quantities of fluids throughout the day, including water, juice, and protein drinks. If the kidneys cannot process fluid fast enough, sodium levels drop sharply, and one of the consequences is cerebral edema, exactly what the autopsy found. The irony is striking and painful. One of the most physically disciplined men of the 20th century may have been undone by something as seemingly harmless as drinking too much water. The most complete explanation may in fact be a combination of all these factors: prior brain vulnerability from a collapse, impaired heat regulation from the sweat gland surgery, and excess fluid intake as the final trigger. Each factor alone might not have been fatal. Together, they created conditions Bruce's body simply could not survive. A family marked by tragedy. Bruce's death left his wife Linda, age 28, to raise their 2 children alone. Their son Brandon was 8 years old. Their daughter Shannon was just 4. Nearly 20 years later, tragedy would revisit the family in a devastating echo. Brandon Lee, who had followed his father into acting and was on the verge of major stardom with the film The Crow, was accidentally shot on set by a prop gun that had been improperly prepared. He died on March 31st, 1993, at age 28, the same age Linda had been when she lost Bruce. Shannon Lee took a different path, dedicating herself to preserving her father's legacy through the Bruce Lee Foundation. In 2019, she co-produced the television series Warrior, based on a concept her father had originally pitched decades before his death. The show brought his vision to a new generation. Bruce Lee lived only 32 years, but the ideas he embodied about breaking barriers, refusing tradition for its own sake, and believing that human potential belongs to no single culture continue to resonate more than 50 years after his death. He was not taken down by a rival or defeated in battle. His body, pushed beyond its limits in ways no one fully understood at the time, simply gave out. The dragon, it turned out, was human after all.